Hello, everybody, and welcome back to VGR. With E3 all wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow, it's me and Matt Morgans here to kind of present our top 3 favorite reveals of the Microsoft conference, as well as go over the more broad spectrum of reveals shown at the conference. Matt, why don't you say hello to the good people?
Hello. Yes, it's been a long few days with a lot of huge announcements. So we're going to be going back over each of the major conferences, kind of covering the bigger things that have been announced, and also kind of selecting what we think are the biggest 3 or our top 3 announcements from each conference.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, and we will be doing this, like you said, for each conference. Right now, we'll be focused primarily on Microsoft. So, Matt, would you like me to kick things off?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, first we have the obvious. We knew this was going to be here. Gears 5, of course, a staple in Microsoft's core IP, and we got some interesting looks at the game. No gameplay, which you'll see is a prevalent theme in the Microsoft conference, unfortunately.
Yes.
But still, so some kind of interesting things to catch people's attention. First of all, we got a pretty trippy-looking trailer featuring Kate. I'm going to go with Kate because it's spelled Kate. One of the core characters in the recent Gears games. And to be honest, a side note, I'm not sure if it's Gears of War anymore or if it's just Gears. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll keep it to Gears. But we got a relatively trippy trailer featuring Kate and kind of going about how the Locusts potentially got their origins and how their queen might have a more human-looking face, as seen in the visuals, with her kind of morphing back and forth between her Locust and human self.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in game. It seems like Gears is kind of going toward a more psychologically tormented route than it has before. So it'll be interesting to see how they breach these new concepts. And we also got a trailer, again, no gameplay, announcing the new game mode called Escape. It's interesting because it features 3-player co-op, which, an odd number. You don't normally see 3-player co-op present in games.
Do you feel like 3-player co-op or just 3-player games are starting to become a little bit prevalent?
Mm-hmm.
I think the old sort of 4-player co-op is starting to be dropped a bit, and there's actually a couple of other games in this E3 that had 3-player co-op. I think Destiny has, I think Destiny's main gameplay is 3-player, and then I think they raised to 6, but I think they were like the first or one of the early games to transition over to 3-player co-op, and I feel like it's starting to become a bit more commonplace.
I feel like with 3-player co-op, kind of a tangent real quick, that you kind of get a more succinct, tight squad-based focus, whereas when you reach four players, you're kind of getting into more the realm of a bigger party, more mid-sized party. So I 3-player co-op, it's not really been done a lot in games, but I don't think it's a bad idea. And with the game mode Escape coming to Gears 5, I think it's really interesting because it sees players purposefully infiltrate a Locust hive, plant a bomb, and then attempt to escape. Pretty basic stuff. You're cutting through hordes of locusts, seemingly bouncing through different areas of the hive as you make your escape. What I found interesting about this was that they featured a challenge creator. They announced a challenge creator will be prominent, so you can kind of, in a sense, add your own levels into the escape game mode for your friends or for strangers to try and escape your hive.
It's a pretty interesting feature for replayability, and it does seem like that's what they're going for with this.
Definitely.
The story mode will be good, I'm sure, but it's not necessarily the feature that's going to keep people coming back. So I think having some sort of large extra bit is something they really need for replayability, and this is something that hasn't necessarily been done before, or at least not exactly in this fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, again, like, it adds to the replayability, which is something I think Gears has kind of struggled with in the past. It's had multiplayer modes, but something like this where it's really dynamic and very player-driven, very creation-driven, is a good way to get the community engaged. Game Pass Ultimate subscribers will get the game 4 days early on September 6th. Everyone else will it'll be available to them on September 10th, which I think is interesting because, as you'll notice, Microsoft had a really strong emphasis on their Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate.
Absolutely.
This conference, it was clear they're making a very strong push toward that. And also, the Terminator will be available in a character pack. I believe it's the T-800. Good old Arnie Schwarzenegger's.
A little bit unexpected there.
Really unexpected. Kind of for whatever reason, it was just thrown in there, but it'll be available at some point. You'll be able to play as the Terminator. Not Arnold himself, unfortunately. I think that was probably a bit too expensive to spring for the likeness of Arnie, but regardless, we'll get Terminator in Gears 5. Next up is a kind of interesting title, popular in Asia, not so popular here, and by not so popular I mean it doesn't really exist in the Crossfire franchise. I know, Matt, you've got some strong opinions about what you saw for Crossfire X. But go ahead, extrapolate.
It's if you're into modern combat with almost no substance, then this game may be for you. at least judging on what the trailer showed, which was easily one of the most over the top trailers in this E3, and didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, there was a moment where a missile smashed into a conference room and a guy was still sat at the table like nothing had happened, and then somehow he was then underwater as the whole building collapsed on top of him, and it was all very melodramatic and over the top, and I don't think there was any dialogue in the whole thing. And it I don't want to be too critical because I haven't seen a whole lot of the gameplay, but it did strike me a little bit as the sort of over the top sort of over-edited trailers that you sometimes get for mobile games that have made a lot of money, where the trailer is really not representative of the game.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, this might be a victim of that. I think the game has been out for a while. I think this trailer was really just announcing that the game was coming to Xbox One. I think it's been out on PC for a little while now.
And certainly, I think you've hit it right on the head. It's got big mobile game vibes with the trailer, but we'll see if it really does have more substance to this. I'm hoping for the fans who are probably carrying over from Asia, probably splicing into like Japanese Chinese servers to play Crossfire. I'm sure they're excited that it's coming here, but I hope it has a big enough follower base to continue being popular here.
As much as the trailer may not be particularly representative, or maybe not exactly well directed, it's also, probably not a direct representation of how good or bad the game is.
Definitely.
Could just be an instance of someone directing a trailer without necessarily realizing how it might look. I got sort of Final Fantasy trailer vibes out of it, in terms of the sort of over the top way that things were portrayed. So maybe it's the kind of trailer that plays a bit better over in China and Japan.
Quite possibly. I mean, it's slated for 2020 release. Reportedly, it does have single player and multiplayer. So we'll see what comes of Crossfire X. Some smaller announcements. We got the Outer Worlds a release date of October 20th. Or October 25th. My apologies. We knew it was coming, so it's not a huge announcement as far as the game is concerned. Or at least it's cool to see. It's nice that it's coming this year. We also got Dying Light 2. We saw a trailer of that. We saw the same parkour mechanics and the day-night cycle that really was beloved by fans of the first game. And I can't believe it's been 4 years since that game came out.
Yeah, certainly. Dying Light 2 is already feeling a lot more ambitious than the first game. Certainly what they're doing with human factions in that game is really interesting.
Yeah.
And actually, we have an interview with the developers of Dying Light 2 going up on VGR. Well, by the time this video goes up, it will be live, and there will be a link to it in the video description, so please do check that out.
Excellent. And, we got a spring 2020 release date. As you said, human factions are really prevalent, and it seems that player choice has really been emphasized this time around.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how that all plays out as we inevitably get more information before spring 2020. We also got some details on Tales of Arise. I will be honest, I don't know much about the Tales series, the Tales franchise of games. But it's coming from Bandai Namco. It's a big action-adventure RPG featuring 2 main characters and a kind of split worlds storyline, and it's slated for a 2020 release date. So I'm sure fans of that franchise are going nuts right now for a new entry on modern consoles. Something else interesting before we kind of get into our top 3 was Minecraft Dungeons, which is an isometric dungeon crawler in the style of Diablo. It, of course, in the Minecraft universe.
Yeah.
That was
I was actually
unexpected.
really looking forward to seeing more of this, because I think we got the first trailer for this. It might have been at the Game Awards.
Mm-hmm.
They just put out a cinematic trailer. They didn't really say much about the game. And I was actually quite surprised to learn that it was a top-down third-person game. I guess just from it being Minecraft, I sort of assumed it was going to be first-person.
Yeah.
But actually seeing it as third-person, I'm intrigued to see more of it. Because I feel like it's a very unexpected move from Microsoft and for the Minecraft franchise. And it seems to be quite substantially different to what you'd expect from Minecraft. So
definitely. That's kind of what I appreciate about it. I stopped playing Minecraft years ago, years and years ago. But I appreciate that they're trying to do something different, even if it is just for the core Minecraft fan base. I think that'll give them something new to really sink their teeth into.
Yeah, and then certainly with this, the what we saw at E3, it looks more and more like the Minecraft aspect is really just the visuals. Like there's no kind of core Minecraft mechanics that you'd get in the core game in this, as far as I can see. It's really just a skin over the top.
Yeah, which I also find interesting is that they're kind of using Minecraft as a world, that kind of Vauxhall style, just as a template for a completely different game. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll see more about that game before its 2020 release. We don't know exactly when in 2020 it's coming out, but it's coming next year. And Matt, let's jump right into our top 3s. Starting with let's start with your number 3. Big reveal at the Microsoft conference.
Yeah, my number 3 is going to be the announcement of Elden Ring, which is the new game coming from Software in collaboration with George R.R. Martin, which is a bit of an unusual pairing. And this was rumoured leading up to E3, and those rumours were obviously confirmed. We didn't get a whole lot of information at E3. We basically just got an announcement trailer confirming that the game is in development. We got the confirmation that George R.R. Martin was involved. Although we don't know exactly how deeply he was involved. We don't know if he was just, a consultant or whether he actually, co-wrote anything. But otherwise it looks like kind of what you'd expect from a From Software game in terms of the aesthetic. There were bits of it that certainly looked like they could fit quite well into Dark Souls without sort of seeming out of place.
Yeah, definitely clearly a From Software game in the sense that it's got its own distinct style.
I felt like I was getting almost not Lord of the Rings vibes, but sort of Lord of the Rings Silmarillion vibes, like the sort of grand, over the top sort of gods and kind of mystical past things. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was rooted in mythology, which makes sense for the Norse kind of loose aesthetic.
Yeah, well, and we know that George R.R. Martin has taken influence. He cited his core influences as Tolkien's works. So it would kind of make sense for him to harken back to some of his original influences. And as for their collaboration, it kind of worked where From Software approached George R. R. Martin. He said yes. They were surprised that he said yes. I think we kind of all were when we found out this collaboration was a thing. But then they just kind of went back and forth about discussions with what they wanted the game to kind of contain, and then he went ahead and wrote the entire lore for Elden Ring. So this world is awesome. It's a George R. R. Martin world, which it's going to be really rich in history and backstory, and probably thousands of years.
Oh, hopefully so.
Yeah, which knowing Hidetaka Miyazaki and From Software, they're going to find an excellent way to lay all that out and let us really explore it. So I'm excited for Elden Ring as well. But my number 3 is quite different. Blair Witch really interested me, and not because I'm a particular fan of horror games. I don't mind them, but I'm also easily scared, so it's not exactly a great pairing. What interested me about Blair Witch was that the trailer kept me guessing. I thought it was another. At first, I was like, I noticed creepy forest vibes. I was thinking, maybe this is Resi 8. Resident Evil 8, and then I was thinking, no, I see the camera, maybe it's Outlast. And then I saw the camera again, it kind of panned back to it, and I said to my girlfriend who was sitting on the couch, I said, this is kind of giving me Blair Witch Project vibes. And I don't know. And then, of course, the trailer goes on, and the title comes up, Blair Witch, and I just about leapt off the couch. Because that was not a serious guess. But at the same time, it very clearly conveyed what the Blair Witch Project did for the atmosphere of horror. And so I think utilizing the camera and utilizing the really creepy, spooky forest is going back to the roots of Blair Witch.
Certainly. It'll be interesting to see how they actually kind of realize that in gameplay.
Yeah, and it's gonna be cool because they said it's a psychological thriller, which I totally buy. I think that Blair Witch itself as a story really lends itself to that psychological horror aspect. I mean, you look at the movie itself; it wasn't really chock full of jump scares. It was a slow burn of psychological terror, which I think if the game can tap into that, it's going to find success.
Definitely.
So, detective, you're a detective as a protagonist in search of a missing 9-year-old child in the creepy, spooky woods. I mean, that's all you need to know. It's Blair Witch. Yeah. And Matt, you're number 2. The Microsoft press conference
is one of the big announcements, one of the biggest from the Microsoft presentation, and that is Halo Infinite. Mm-hmm. It's been quite a long time now since we got another Halo game, which is certainly a bit of a trend for the series. There tend to be big gaps between their releases, and we do now know maybe why it's been such a big gap, because one of the big things after the big reveal trailer, which is maybe hinting at what the opening of the game is going to be like. But we didn't get a whole lot of detail about what comes after that or what gameplay is going to be like. One of the things we learned was that Halo Infinite will be a launch title for Project Scarlet, which is the next upcoming Xbox console, which is, we now know, coming somewhere around summer 2020.
Holiday 2020, I believe they announced.
Yes. I'm thinking of they said they were going to reveal more information summer 2020.
Yeah,
Holiday 2020 is the actual release. So it does make me wonder whether they've entered into some agreement with 343 Industries to maybe kind of delay the next Halo to make sure that it would be a launch title. Because it definitely does hark back to the original Xbox release, where Halo Combat Evolved was really their primary launch title.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a sense of nostalgia to launch a new Xbox with a new Halo.
Yeah, I think they said that's kind of what they were trying to tap into as well, go back to the roots of Halo and Xbox.
Yeah.
And certainly that's very clearly the case, judging by the trailer. I mean, we get a glimpses at a lot of classic shots. We return to the theme of the Halos, and
absolutely
get a more classic-looking Master Chief armor. Definitely a modern take on it, but you can see the classic elements inspired by Combat Evolved.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to gaming, I pretty much grew up playing Halo, so there's not a Halo game I've played that I've not enjoyed. So I'm definitely looking forward to Halo Infinite and whatever 343 Industries comes up with.
Yeah, and Holiday 2020 gives us plenty of time to see more gameplay, more trailers, more stuff to get us hyped. My number 2, again, vastly different from your number 2. Mine comes in with 12 Minutes, the really interesting indie game that we got to look at, featuring a man stuck in a time loop. And that is totally my jam. I am all about that stuff, especially when it comes to people really realizing they're stuck in a time loop. And that, as the trailer progresses, is clearly the case with this man who, kind of leaps up from the dinner table and asks his wife to explain the things that he has obviously experienced in the last time loop he had experienced just 12 minutes prior, and she obviously doesn't know what he's talking about, and so it leaves the viewers confused at first, but as the trailer goes on, we see just how that time loop can play out, and it seems like gameplay will revolve around the players trying to unravel this mystery, solve this puzzle while doing different things to affect the continuity of time differently, as of course each 12 minutes passes and it plays with his psyche. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out. It's got a lot of interesting narrative potential. We don't know much about it, so I as much as I would like to go on about 12 minutes forever, we really don't know too much.
Yeah, we don't really know how the time loop is actually going to be managed, or how the gameplay mechanics are actually going to work. I mean, what they showed in the trailer certainly looks like it could have been gameplay, maybe with the UI taken away.
Yeah.
But we don't know if there's going to be, for example, dialogue choices, or whether you have to make decisions and then watch the 12 minutes play out. We don't know if you're literally going to be sitting there playing for 12 minutes, or whether time is going to skip around. There's still a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns for sure.
Yeah, but it's definitely one of the more intriguing kind of smaller game designs that we've seen this E3.
Yeah, so it's definitely got me hooked. Again, we didn't really see gameplay, saw a trailer, but I'm interested. I don't care that we got a limited look. I want more. And Matt, our number 1 for the Microsoft press conference, unsurprisingly, is not all that different. Actually, you might be able to say it's the exact same. You go ahead and lead us into it.
It's obviously Cyberpunk 2077.
What?
Far and away the biggest announcement of the Microsoft presentation, or more specifically, the fact that Keanu Reeves is in Cyberpunk 2077 is the biggest announcement out of. I guess that's twinned with they actually announced a release date, which was quite surprising.
Yeah.
In our predictions video, we had said we'd actually successfully predicted it was going to be spring 2020, but we unsuccessfully predicted that they were not going to reveal a specific date. We thought they would just reveal a season, maybe a month, but no, they went all out and said a specific date, which tells me that they are very confident about their release schedule.
I love it. I love that.
Which is a good sign, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We know CDPR. We know that they're not going to announce a game or release a game before it's ready. And I think they learned that with The Witcher, with announcing it and then having it delayed 6 months. And obviously it came out and it is such an immaculate game. But I think they really learned from that and did not want to announce Cyberpunk too early, especially because the hype around it is way higher, I feel like, than The Witcher 3 ever was.
Yeah, I mean, when The Witcher 3 came out, it was relatively unknown. Like, The Witcher 2 had a bit of a sort of niche audience, but it was not really considered a AAA franchise.
No.
And then The Witcher 3 kind of catapulted it into AAA, but I feel like even leading up to its release, people weren't really, really excited about it, because it was a relatively unknown franchise, and it was really the really positive reviews that it got leading up to release that kind of switched people on to this new kind of AAA franchise. Because I think The Witcher 3 was really the first game that felt AAA in that series.
Yeah, of course, and of course that has allowed CDPR to catapult into something as big as Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, I could fill a whole episode on just babbling on about how excited I am for Cyberpunk. But we got a new story cinematic featuring potentially branching elements, because we know that CDPR has emphasized that choices matter, choices are important. And we saw potentially the effect of some of those choices that V, the protagonist of Cyberpunk, can make, and how that will dramatically affect his story. Without going into too much detail, because again, that would take forever. That's a whole rabbit hole for me. At the end of the trailer, we got the Keanu Reeves reveal, which was huge, not only because it was Keanu Reeves, but because he's such a prominent character in the Cyberpunk universe as Johnny Silverhand. If you don't know who that is, link down below to the video that I did on the lore of Johnny Silverhand for all the newcomers to the Cyberpunk world. And then Keanu took the stage, like you said, which blew our minds even further. And then he said, "Do you want to see a release date?" And then our minds kept getting blown. And then they gave us the release date and some gameplay snippets, which was cool.
Some very brief ones, but I think it was 40 seconds of gameplay snippets.
And that's more than we got from the entire conference. So
yes, I would guess that some of those snippets were taken from Cyberpunk gameplay, which is being shown at the conference. Unfortunately, it's not being released outside of the conference just yet. They're doing something similar to what they did last E3, where last E3 they only showed gameplay demos behind closed doors, and then they didn't release them for a few months. This time they are showing them to E3 attendees, but it's again not going to be released to the widespread public for a little while.
Yes.
I think it's coming out at Gamescom.
Yes, that's what they've said. So essentially, CDPR have detailed the nature of those presentations to us, and when we can expect to see more gameplay in an encoded message that was very quickly deciphered in the E3 announcement trailer. Essentially, what they told us is that the general public at E3 got to see a 25-minute gameplay demo at their booth.
Yeah.
Private press who were invited back to CDPR's little private conference got a 50-minute gameplay reveal, and they said that we can expect to see some gameplay. We don't know which of the two we're going to see at either Gamescom or PAX. So fall, late summer is when we can really expect to see those gameplay videos rolling out. But until then, I'm sure you can find any number of people talking about what they saw.
Certainly. Very, very much similar to last year.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the demo they eventually released was only one of 2 or 3 that they had shown to press. There were some variations. I remember there was a whole thing in a few reports about one of the demos featuring a bullet deflecting katana that wasn't in the demo that was eventually released. So
they know we want to see it. They know I want to see it. That's a personal attack. I'm going to be honest.
So certainly, well, as far as this Cyberpunk announcement or presentation went, the release date announcement was the big thing everyone was hoping for, and they absolutely delivered on that. And the Keanu Reeves announcement was huge and totally unexpected. Beyond that, I felt like it wasn't all that substantive. They released the new cinematic trailer, but we didn't really see anything new in it. Aside from Johnny Silverhand, it was all characters we'd seen before, and it was pretty much directly following on from the story of last year's gameplay demo, and we're assuming it's either one possible string of events, or maybe it's a scripted story event, or maybe it's not even an event that happens in the game and they just kind of scripted it for a cinematic trailer. But we didn't see any new cybernetics or any new areas or anything like that. It was just a cinematic trailer. I think more for the purpose of introducing Keanu Reeves as a character.
Definitely, and I think, the prominence of showing Jackie's death, who was, Jackie was, purported to be the big sidekick in the 50-minute gameplay reveal. He died in this trailer, so I think that is CDPR's way of saying that, your choice potentially has dire repercussions if this isn't a scripted event. Yeah. Or going on the flip side of that and saying, even if this is a scripted event, expect people to die, because it can and will happen. But either way, yeah, some really cool stuff. Like you said, nothing too groundbreaking and substantial, but
yeah,
I don't care.
But I would expect, I think I would expect a lot more substantive stuff coming out of the gameplay.
Absolutely.
That they reveal. I think, last time when they had gameplay, they showed a lot of just gameplay, but they also interspersed that gameplay with voiceover explaining the mechanics and the various options, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them do something like that again, especially because they said leading up to the event that the game would look quite different compared to the demo that we saw last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still not entirely clear what they meant by that.
Personally, I can't wait to find out. Some side notes, some smaller announcements worth mentioning before we sign out. The LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga was announced. Way to the Woods, Spiritfarer, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Battletoads.
Personally excited for that one.
Yes, indeed. It looked pretty cool. The Battletoads remake, Age of Empires 2, is headed to Xbox. And the Forza Horizon 4 LEGO expansion. Yeah, you'll see it in the trailer snippets where we're showing. But it's a thing. It's real, and honestly, I'm pretty much here for it. But that is gonna do it for our comprehensive Microsoft conference coverage. Once again, I've been Jacob Smith,
and I'm Matt Morgans.
Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time for the Bethesda conference coverage.